expected from that ministry, from the workers or members of staff at the Ministry of Finance, as well as the new minister. He said there is now no time for leisure, and a lot of things are going to change at the Ministry of Finance. He has projected and he has mentioned a good number of issues. Some of them, or some of the projects, were started by the PF administration. He talks about them, or he has spoken about them in the afternoon, and he said he hopes to conclude. Among them, it is the IMF bailout. He hopes that it should be concluded by September, October. Also, he talked about the tough measures, issues to do with corruption. He said, he told the members of staff during the press briefing that if you are involved or you have been involved in corrupt activities, no one is going to stop you. We continue to talk about the new dawn, what is expected in the Minister of Finance as well as the Minister of Finance. My guest on the program is a financial analyst as well as an economist. He is not new. He has featured on a number of programs at Muvi television and is my guest tonight to help us discuss the new dawn, what is at stake, as well as the appointment of the new finance minister and what is lined. My guest is Blessings Kafwanka. Blessings, good evening and welcome to the special interview.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Kelvin. It's always a pleasure to be invited to this platform to share my views over various issues of national importance.
We look at the economic outlook and BALLY. BK, allow me first of all to look at, or let us watch and listen to what President Hakainde Hichilema talked about when he was at State House during the swearing-in of Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane, and then we begin our discussion. Director, bring us to speed. We refresh our minds and see, as well as we get to listen to what President Hakainde Hichilema talked about at State House this morning.
Is the call of our agenda to turn around this country's economy, to turn around this country's You have vast experience in this area, and this stays with the theme of this government: one, to appoint people to positions based on the fact that they are Zambians. It doesn't matter their surname, it doesn't matter who their mother, who their father is, but they are citizens of Zambia. Number two, that they are competent. They bring merit to the table so we can deliver for the people of Zambia. First, to my colleagues in the UPND, in the UPND Alliance, and all other colleagues from the political side that are here, the public officers that are here, civil servants, others, the media, colleagues from the media, the Fourth Estate. Thank you for coming to this ceremony, swearing-in ceremony for the Minister of Finance position, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane. First, I would like once more to congratulate you, Minister, for accepting being appointed, then accepting to serve in this very important, fundamental office, critical to advancing the reason that the people of Zambia, especially the youth, voted us into office in a dramatic manner. This is the call of our agenda. The office of Minister of Finance is the call of our agenda to turn around this country's economy, to turn around this country's You have vast experience in this area, and this stays with the theme of this government: one, to appoint people to positions based on the fact that they are Zambians. It doesn't matter their surname, it doesn't matter who their mother, who their father is, but they are citizens of Zambia. Number two, that they are competent. They bring merit to the table so we can deliver for the people of Zambia. And Dr. Musokutwane has vast experience. First, he's a Zambian. Two, he brings merit to this role. I've known this gentleman for many, many years. Lecturer in economics at the University of Zambia, Deputy Governor at Bank of Zambia, Special Assistant to the President for Economic Affairs, and the President, the late Mwanawasu. Could have been President Banda here. Secretary to the Treasury, Deputy Secretary to the Cabinet for Economics and Finance, Advisor to the IMF, and many other roles. I think the few that I have articulated, you can agree with me that because he's Zambian, he deserves the appointment. Because he qualifies, reinforces his appointment. And that will be the tradition of this government going forward. So when you see us taking a bit of time, it's because we want to do the right thing. We are stepping up the standards of public office bearers and what they intend to do for the people of Zambia. We believe, the people of Zambia believe, that with your wealth of experience and competence, you will be able, with your team, with our team, in the line ministry, in other ministries, in the public service overall, the business community, the people of Zambia, because we all work as one towards an objective to serve the people better. You will be able to deliver. First and foremost, we are taking over a country whose treasury is empty. Empty. You may have not heard me. The treasury is empty. There is no money. That's why we failed to service our debt. We defaulted. So, we need to dismantle the debt mountain. We need a progressive budget that will begin to realign our way of managing public resources away from consumption, away from wastage, and more towards investment, towards revenue generation. Even with this empty treasury, we expect to drive this budget, he and his team, to send a message to the people of Zambia that there's a new way of doing business for the people of Zambia. Obviously, we need fiscal discipline. We need fiscal discipline. We need to be prudent. We need to always know that resources are scarce. And how we utilize the resources which are scarce will be critical to serving the people of Zambia. Frivolous expenditure has no room. Large delegation to meetings will not be there. Traveling on business class, first class, something many of us have never done for ourselves, because now we work in government, we want to travel first class, business class. That will not be there. The minister knows the brief. Delegations will be smaller, only as necessary. As I said, resources are scarce. So if we preserve the resources, then we make them available to be spent in the areas that will better that child in school. The financial leakages, the bleeding going on must be closed, must be patched up. Patch the wounds driven by the actions of the past. I don't want to waste time on that. And going forward, we don't open new wounds to gush out more blood. Citizens are hurting. We want to deal with illicit financial flows. We want to deal with corruption. Zero tolerance to corruption, but not driven on vindictive lines, but allowing the institutions with that mandate, legal mandate, on behalf of the people of Zambia, to fight corruption. Do it professionally, give them political will, but allow them to work independent. Breath of fresh air. We want to rebuild the fiscus, drive decentralization. In this first budget, instrument for generating revenue, directing expenditure, I expect the minister and his team to begin to drive money away from the gluttonous behavior around Lusaka, the tendering processes around Lusaka, and take the money to the owners, those who voted for us, the citizens, the woman who has to walk 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers to draw water. She has water on her head, firewood on her shoulder, a young baby on her back, and on the other hand, she's pulling an infant. It is your duty, Minister, it's our duty to provide water for that woman, that mother, so she can walk a shorter distance to draw water. That's why we want to realign money from consumption, wastage, theft. Let's put it simply, theft, so that woman can have water. Decentralization, devolution, allow people to make decisions, priority. Different priorities in the localities they live in. Foster economic growth, obviously for what? Food. Said it. Consistent with our inauguration speech. Food for the people, affordable food. Jobs, business opportunities, education for our people, those who want it, who deserve it. Health service delivery. This is what this portfolio is all about. And you will be supported by all of us, including our office. And I indeed believe other ministries. Let me just close by saying, appointing the Minister of Finance first and alone makes some people nervous. And some people are saying, I'm waiting for too long for my appointment. We're sending a message that first is to reconstruct the economy. Then we can look at social services and fund social services. You can't advance consumption before you advance revenue generation. Simple, isn't it? Very simple. So he has to work on a budget. We are in a hurry. The budget has a calendar. He comes in first. Straight takes charge of the Ministry of Finance, takes charge of the Bank of Zambia, takes charge of the Zambia Revenue Authority, takes charge of parastatals. It doesn't matter through which channel. Ultimately, the shareholder, on behalf of the people of Zambia, for all parastatals, quasi-government, is the Minister of Finance. So, sir, that's why you've come in first. Others will follow rapidly. Be patient. No worry. We're organized. We're methodical. Very soon you'll see the benefit of that. You're already seeing order in the markets. Councils are beginning to generate revenue. Order. Councils generate revenue. We don't want them to be the new misusers of resources. They must deliver services to the citizens, to residents of towns. They must clean toilets in markets, water in the markets, garbage must be collected, salaries must be paid. Easy, isn't it? Methodical. Please be patient with us. I see social media getting impatient. Be patient with us. Minister, once more, congratulations. Your shoulders must be tough to carry the burden, the expectations from the people. But you will be okay. You have our support. You have the water support. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that is His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema this morning during the swearing-in ceremony of the new Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane. In case this is when you are just joining us, this is the special interview on the channel of choice, and we're looking at economic outlook under BALLY. My guest is an economist as well as financial analyst, Blessings Kafwanka. Blessings, your 2 cents on the presidential speech during the swearing-in of Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane.
Well, first things first, I think I should congratulate Honorable Stumbeko Musokotwane for his appointment to that particular portfolio as Minister of Finance. I think it's a well-deserved appointment. Just like, the President has rightly indicated that he's a qualified man, he's got the right credentials, he's got the wealth of experience, having served at the Bank of Zambia, having lectured at the highest institution of learning, and served in many other portfolios. I think he's got what it takes to be able to discharge the duties of Minister of Finance. And if you listen very closely to what our President talked about, I think he raised quite a number of important issues that I think our Minister of Finance will have to deal with now that he has taken over this position. One of the things that the President mentioned is the fact that the coffers are empty. We don't have money right now. We are facing quite a number of challenges, and we have this huge mountain of debt that has to be resolved. And at the same time, we still have quite a number of other needs that need to be attended to. So you have empty coffers and you have all of these other challenges. So it is not an easy task. I don't think it's something that, I don't think success is something that is going to come overnight. I think it would take a bit of some time. And I think it's important for us as Zambians as well to be a little bit more patient. I know that during the campaign time, a lot of promises were made, and Zambians are very expectant. A lot of things that we expect to fall in place. But I think it's something that is not going to come overnight. I think it will take a bit of some time.
Now, with what the President mentioned, that him and his administration have inherited an economy that has got empty coffers, and with the projection, or with the campaign promises of saying, when we come into government, we are going to fix the economy. And now he's saying the first thing is to arrest the economy and make sure that the economy starts to tick. How can he fix the economy with empty coffers?
That's a tricky one. But I think something can be done. The coffers might be empty, but I think with the right policies, with the right kind of approach, I think it can still be done. There are quite a number of things that I think our Minister of Finance will have to look at. Firstly, we need to ask ourselves, how did we get to this point? How did we get to a point where we accumulated this huge mountain of debt and we reached a situation where our coffers were empty? The biggest problem that we've had is one of the issues that the President highlighted, the issue of fiscal indiscipline. There's been a lot of indiscipline. And he also talked about bleeding, the bleeding of financial resources. Okay, we have seen reports from FIC, reports from Auditor General's report, where issues of misappropriation, misapplication, and so on and so forth, and that has led to that has brought us to the position where we are right now, where our coffers are empty. So there are a number of things that have to be done, and one of the first things that has to be done is to ensure that we increase on our ability to generate revenues, and especially generating domestic resources domestically. We might have to put in quite a number of measures in place, such as widening our tax brackets, ensuring that we have a vibrant manufacturing sector, that can expand our ability to be able to export. That plus a number of other things, I believe, will still be able to get there. And one other very important thing that the Minister of Finance mentioned was the issue of bringing on board the International Monetary Fund. I think that is going to help to reduce the debt burden that we have at the moment. The moment the IMF deal comes in, and hopefully he did mention that it was going to come through probably in the next 2 months, either in September or October. So once that happens, I think it is going to help. It's going to provide a bit of some relief so that we can now have resources available that can be channeled towards other key sectors of the economy.
The President also talked about that we are going to have or see a new way of doing business. He mentioned that, a new way of doing business and, sealing some loopholes. Can we conclude and say this is another way of saying Zambians should tighten their belts? Because our coffers are empty.
Yes. I think it's important for us to realize that we are now going through a very difficult phase. And for us to be able to recover from where we are coming from, we will need to definitely tighten our belts. There are a lot of loopholes that exist at the moment, and if you followed very closely to what our Republican president talked about, he emphasized the fact that they are not going to, he's not going to tolerate indiscipline within the public service. Okay, that basically means that we need to utilize our resources more prudently. It basically means that we will not be able to do certain things that we've been able to do in the past because we have to tighten up our belts. He talked about, fiscal consolidation. He talked about the fact, he raised the fact that we have been spending more than what we are earning. Okay, for us to be able to turn around that particular scenario to a scenario where we are spending within our means, definitely we'll have to tighten up our belts. We'll need to ensure that we do not spend money recklessly, and certain things that have been going on for some time now with regard to the way finances are utilized will have to change.
With this revelation, pronouncement by the President that we have inherited a government or an economy that has got empty coffers, and that it is not going to be business as usual, we are going to see a new way of doing business with those or Zambians that whose hopes were very high, that now we are in the new dawn. We have an economist at the helm of the country as a president. Can we say we are going to have hope that things are going to change and our economy is going to improve? When I talk about the economy, I don't just talk about the country's economy, but economy at a personal level. With this pronouncement, don't you think all the hopes that Zambians had have been shattered?
Well, with the observations that I have made so far, I think many reasonable Zambians do understand the fact that these campaign promises that President Hakainde was making are not promises that can be achieved overnight. From my observation, I think a lot of people, in as much as they are expectant, I think they know that we have to give it a bit of some time for us to be able to get to a point where all of those promises were made, will be achieved. Just the other day, I think there was, a statement that was made by one of the leaders from the opposition who was demanding that we should have free education now that President Hakainde has taken over. For me, I think that was a misplaced statement because, it is a process. Okay, it is if you start work today, you don't expect that everything that you need within your home and everything that you've always wanted to do, you will do them there and then. It will take a bit of some time. So there are a number of things that will have to be put in place. For you to have your free education, you need to have resources at your disposal. Okay, so the starting point is ensuring that the government is able to generate that revenue to be able to provide the free education. Okay, if you are going to make certain investments, like for example in the agricultural sector, in the mining sector, in the tourism sector, you need resources for you to be able to make those investments. So it would take a bit of some time. And I think I would strongly encourage Zambians out there, especially those that voted for President Hakainde, to be a little bit more patient. Success is not something that can be achieved overnight. Success is a process. And right now, we should take pride in the fact that our Republican president has realized the fact that we are in a problem and is being able to itemize some of the problems that we are facing. And in my opinion, some of the proposed solutions that he has brought forward are viable proposals. And I believe those proposals, if implemented, will help to turn around our economy. So right now, we are now facing in the right direction. I can confidently say that we are now facing in the right direction. We haven't yet started moving. We are not near to where we would like to be, but we are facing in the right direction. And I think we should be proud of that as Zambians.
With the president making it clear that our coffers are very empty, and also talking about the some delegations that will be going for meetings that they have to be cut, and the number also being reduced. And now you are talking about Zambians, those that voted for President HH, that they should have patience. Can we say now that, for lack of a better term, things are now on standstill? We are not moving. We are stagnant.
Well, I wouldn't really agree with the choice of words that we have used. I think I would have a better, another way of expressing it. Okay, we are basically tightening our belts and ensuring that things are done in a proper manner. Okay. One of the things that the Minister of Finance talked about this afternoon was the fact that we need to clinch a deal with the International Monetary Fund. Now, that deal cannot come without following the conditions. We already know the conditions that the IMF comes with. So if you listen to what the Republican president was talking about, he's basically laying ground for that particular event. Okay, we will need to implement some of the things that the president is talking about. We need to cut down on government expenditure, unnecessary travel, unnecessary workshops, and so on and so forth. So he's basically laying ground. And I think it will even be a lot easier for us to be able to clinch that particular deal.
In case this is when you've just joined us, this is the special interview. And my guest is Blessings Kafwanka, who is a business and financial analyst. We are looking at the new dawn, what is at stake, and the economic outlook under BALLY. In case this is when you've just joined us, and you're wondering who is the new Minister of Finance, Dr. Musokotwane. We give you the background of who Dr. Musokotwane is and also what he talked about in the afternoon after he was sworn in. So that is the profile. He served as special assistant to the President for Economic Affairs. That was at State House under President Levi Mwanawasa. And then President Rupia Banda nominated him as MP and appointed him Minister of Finance from 2008 to 2011. He went into opposition, and 10 years later, he has bounced back in the same position he said to be. And also, he said no-nonsense when it comes, he's known to be a no-nonsense man when it comes to prudent financial management. Previously served as Deputy Governor of the Bank of Zambia and later Secretary to the Treasury. Bige, I know that you've touched some of these. So, the president, in the morning when he was swearing in Dr. Musokotwane, he talked about people that are going to serve in this country, that first of all, they need to be qualified people, competent people, and also qualified people. With the qualifications and how, Dr. Musokotwane and the portfolios that he has held before, do you think with the demand that the president has put across will be able to be met with this new finance minister?
Certainly, I have no reason to doubt that Honorable Musokotwane will be able to perform in that position. I mean, we have just looked at his profile, the portfolios where he has served, from the Bank of Zambia, the Ministry of Finance, State House, even the service in academic circles. I have completely no reason to doubt that he's got the required credentials and the required experience for him to be able to deliver. And coupled with the fact that our Republican president is also an economist who understands these issues, and he has a clear sense of direction where he would like the country to be in the coming years, I don't think it would be a very difficult task for the Minister of Finance to be able to deliver, because I mean he's working with a boss who really understands the direction where we should be going. If you look at where we are coming from, the past regime, I think we had a problem when it came to implementation. We had a situation where you have a Minister of Finance who holds a press briefing or a press conference, and she makes a number of proposals and a number of statements. Some of the things that we need to do A, B, C, D. We need to cut down on expenditure. We need to suspend this program and suspend that program. But when it came to implementation, it was a totally different story. You could clearly see that whatever the minister had on her mind at the time was completely different from what cabinet and the Republican president had. Because if they were in sync, we wouldn't have that kind of a scenario where you are saying one thing and you are implementing something totally different. So this time around, we have a Republican president and a Minister of Finance who are thinking at the same level, and they are all recommending that we should go in a particular direction. So I am very hopeful that when it comes to implementing all of these issues that the President was raising today, I think we will get there. Implementation, I think we will have more commitment, and most of these things will be implemented.
With that rich CV and also the portfolios that Dr. Musokotwane has been all his life and now back to the Minister of Finance, why should Zambians have patience?
Well, because the success is not really dependent on the academic credentials that he has. It's not totally dependent on his academic credentials and experience. You know, there are a number of factors that will have to come into play. Okay, just like any other area you enter into, any field that you enter into, if you want to succeed in your career, you want to succeed in your business, success will certainly not come overnight. Regardless of how much knowledge, regardless of how many degrees or academic credentials you have, or how experienced you are, success will certainly not come overnight. So you have to be a little bit more patient. You have to be more consistent in terms of implementing the right things, doing the right things that will be able to get you there. So the same thing applies even for our Minister of Finance. Yes, he does have this rich background. He has this rich academic background. But success will not just come in a spell of a moment. It is something that will come over a sustained period of time.
After being sworn in as the new Minister of Finance, he went ahead and went to the office, that is the Minister of Finance, held a press briefing where he also talked about a number of issues, things that have to be put in place, things that have to change, or things that have to be done differently in order for our economy to start ticking. We get to show you what Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane said when he met the Secretary to the Treasury as well as some directors at the Ministry of Finance.
65-year-old newly appointed Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane, says clinching a deal with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, is a priority. In 1979, he made his first appearance at the ministry just after graduating from the University of Zambia. His second time was his appointment as advisor to then Minister of Finance, Katele Kalumba. His third time was being Secretary to the Treasury, then Minister of Finance from 2008 to 2011 under the Rupiah Banda administration. And now, being his fifth time at the ministry, Dr. Musokotwane, who is also Liuwa Member of Parliament, says he is happy with the confidence expressed in him.
I also want to thank the President, President Chirema, for showing confidence that he can come back to the Minister of Finance to lead his economic team, and all I can say is that I will not disappoint him, and I will not disappoint the people of Zambia.
He says the current economic stress of Zambia has its roots in this ministry as the previous administration overborrowed.
This economic stress, has its roots here in the Ministry of Finance. The stress arises from the fact that Zambia, over a relatively short period of time, has just borrowed too much money. borrowed too much money, meaning that as we pay back, there's little liquidity for those running businesses to have customers.
Admitting that the current economic environment is far different from his last time here, Dr. Musokotwane says another focus is driving up the agenda of the private sector, such as mining. For him, his target is to increase the output from the current 800,000 tons to 2 million tons.
We know there are millions of young people looking for jobs, and those jobs must come from the private sector. So you see what we are going to do. We are going to do a lot to drive up the agenda in the private sector. We will push hard to make sure that our mining sector expands. The mining output has been stuck for the last 10 years. By the end of this current mandate, we want to push the mining output to something close to 2 million tons per annum from 800,000. Why? Because mining, as you know, is the one that gives foreign exchange, is the one that gives some employment, is the one that provides employment in many sectors. Our colleagues in Congo, 2011, they were producing less copper than us. Not so. Today, they are almost producing double the amount of copper that Zambia is producing. Congo DRC.
He says he will look into the agreement made with Lazard, a consultancy company engaged by the previous administration to help restructure the country's debt.
We will look at the situation. We said it without total information. We will look at the situation. If our fears then are confirmed, then of course it takes a different route. But if we feel there might be some value, who knows? So we'll look at the situation, make a recommendation to the President, then we agree on the way forward.
Dr. Musokotwane says talks with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, are likely to be concluded by November 2021. Virginia Chilongo, Muvi TV News in Lusaka.
That is the Finance Minister, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane. Blessings, Kafwanka. Before we talk about the issues of the IMF, Lazard, as well as the copper production, let's talk about something that is very, very important, the issue of little liquidity for those that are doing business. He said for those that are doing business, there's going to be little liquidity.
Well, one of the things that I hope the new government and the new Minister of Finance is going to do is to carry on some of the initiatives and some of the plans that the previous regime had. Not everything should be thrown away. I think there are quite a number of very good proposals and very good plans which were not implemented. If you look at the Economic Recovery Program 2020 to 2023, one of the focus areas was the issue of dismantling domestic expenditure arrears. Basically meaning that we need to ensure that all those that supply goods and services to the government, they should be paid their money. Right now, there is a huge debt that is owed to the private sector, and they've been facing quite a number of challenges due to no liquidity. They are not getting paid on time. So it becomes very difficult for the private sector to grow. It becomes very difficult even for your economic growth, because economic growth should be private sector driven. So that is a key area which I think our Minister of Finance and our Republican President should be able to focus on. And I'm very expectant that as the new Minister of Finance, Dr. Musokotwane, will be presenting the budget, I think in the next 4 weeks, he should be able to make sufficient budgetary allocation towards the dismantling of arrears. We need to see liquidity to begin to flow in the market. Once that happens, once you have a vibrant private sector, it will become easier for you to be able to sort out all the other challenges that you are facing. I mean, he talked about the fact that our domestic revenues are dwindling; they are reducing. How do you ensure that you revamp your domestic expenditures? you need to ensure that you have a vibrant private sector that can pay in their taxes, and you'll be able to generate more revenues. If you're going to sort out your debt, you need to be generating sufficient revenues for you to be able to pay your debt and be able to take care of your various needs and wants. So it is very important that we should be able to create an environment where there is going to be sufficient liquidity on the market for the private sector to thrive.
With these changes, we defaulted under the previous administration on our debt, and you've talked about the domestic debt. With the changes that have happened, we have the new president, we have the new minister of finance. Do you think, with the empty treasury, do you think we as a nation will be able to pay or dismantle the domestic debt as well as our Eurobonds?
Well, in the short term, we may not be able to do that. I think it's very clear. We just have to be honest with ourselves that we will not be able to pay. The first Eurobond, the first, that is $750 million falls due just in the next 12 months. And when you look at the position where we are not in a position to pay that. We just defaulted on the coupon payments. A few months ago, we defaulted on a $42.5 million. That was in November last year. Just some 4 months ago, we defaulted on another $56.1 million. So what about $750 million? That's a huge amount of money which I don't think we'll be able to repay in the next 12 months. But I think we should take solace in the fact that our Republican president has got a plan. I think he's shared his plans widely. The plans to ensure that we restructure our debt, we get back to our bondholders and begin to negotiate so that we can postpone some of the debt and get a bit of some relief so that we can have a bit of some resources that we can then now utilize to be able to stimulate economic growth and put ourselves in a position where we are able to repay the external debt and also the domestic debt. So in the short term, we may not be in a position to clear our debt, both domestic debt and external debt. But in the long term, provided that we implement some of the issues that the Minister of Finance and the Republican President raised, I think we'll be able to do that.
The PF under President Edgar Chagwa Lungu had 3 ministers of finance. We saw Felix Mtati talking about the IMF, the negotiations that very soon will be able to clinch a deal with IMF. Then we saw Margaret Mwanakatu, who also talked about the IMF. Then we had Dr. Walyangandu also re-echoing or still maintaining the stance that Zambia, we need a bailout package by the IMF. Today, we have a new Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane, the same song of IMF. And he says that will be done maybe between September and October. Why is he coming with this confidence where his predecessors, the 3 ministers that I've mentioned, failed to close the deal with IMF?
Kevin, you can tell from the tone that our Republican president is using that our current government will not have to be forced to comply with some of the recommendations that the IMF was making. He's already talking about cutting down expenditure. He's already talking about ensuring that we don't have these useless workshops and useless travel and so on and so forth. So for me, I am very confident that the IMF deal will certainly come through. When you look at the previous regime, the problem was lack of commitment towards implementing the conditionalities that were being proposed. I think this IMF talk started way back in 2015, November, if my memory serves me right. If you do your math, it has taken about 6 years. We've been engaging with the IMF and negotiating and talking, and nothing has come through because of our inability to be able to do what we are expected to do. But our Republican president, even without the IMF conditionalities, he has realized the fact that it is important for us to be able to tighten our belts, for us to get out of the economic mess that we are in. So when it comes to the International Monetary Fund, I think they will just be able to fit in. So it will not really be a big issue for them to come in, because the government would have already implemented all those deflationary policies that the IMF has been recommending. So The Minister of Finance talked about clinching the deal in the next 2 months, by September, October. I think it is very easy. It is very achievable, because already we have started with that kind of a tone where we are talking about cutting down on expenditure. So it will be very easy.
Because when you look at our economy, yes, we know, even in 2020, the PF government launched the economic recovery plan, trying to put our economy back on track. And with what is happening, the proposals that the minister talked about, issues to do with copper mining, that there is need to double it and, produce more copper in this country. He talked about us, adding value to the things that we are producing. Where we are, can't we survive without the IMF? Looking at the proposals that the minister is talking about, because we don't need the IMF to mine our copper. We don't need the IMF to revamp our agriculture. Can't we do things differently by revamping our agriculture, adding value to the things that we're producing, also doubling the effort when it comes to mining, copper?
Yes, we can. But the IMF plays a very important role in this whole mess that we are in. Mind you, the biggest problem that we have at the moment is a huge mountain of debt that has been accumulated over the years. So in as much as we might talk about revamping the mining sector, revamping the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector, but if we do not deal with this debt problem that we have, it's going to be a problem. So the IMF when the IMF comes in, it is going to help to build confidence. It is not just the bailout package that they are going to give you that is going to help. It is not just the 1.3 million US dollars that you're trying to get, but it is the confidence that the various players on the international financial systems, financial international system are going to have, and particularly our creditors. Okay, we are trying to negotiate so that we can have fiscal space. Okay, we are trying to negotiate so that we can, reduce on our debt repayment in the short term. If you reduce on your debt repayment, then you have fiscal space to be able to provide sufficient budgetary allocation towards other sectors of the economy. Right now, we are not able to do all of those things. Our coffers are empty. Okay, so the starting point, and I'm glad that the Minister of Finance has really made that a priority, that we need to have this particular deal come through in the next 2 months. Once that comes through, then everything begins to fall in place. Now we can begin to talk about what we should do in the mining sector. He talked about increasing productivity from the current 800,000 tons to 3 million tons. That is important. We need to do that. And when we begin to do that, in the long run, we should be able to reach a point where we become self-sufficient, where we do not have to look to external sources to provide budgetary support. So for now, I think it is important that we start with the IMF. But in the long term, we need to ensure that we do some of the issues, some of the recommendations that our Minister of Finance is making. Revamp the mining sector, revamp the agricultural sector, the tourism sector, and all other sectors of the economy. Then you'll be able to become sufficient in the long run.
The minister talked about clinching the deal or closing the deal with IMF, and he was very confident. Then he talked about the issues of mining that this government aims to record the production of 3 million metric tons. Some of our mines are under care and maintenance. We have seen people on the copper belt losing jobs. We have seen some mines, closing. With the projection and the pronouncement from the minister, without engaging mine owners or investors, how possible and feasible is it that as a country, Zambia, where some mines have been placed on care and maintenance, where some investors have told government before that we are going to pull out? Is this feasible? Is this attainable? Or it's just one of those pronouncements?
Well, I wish the minister had given a time frame. The first and most important thing is for us to understand what is causing these problems, for us to come up with a solution and be able to confidently say that this is what we intend to do and it's achievable. When you look at the problems that the mining sector is currently facing, there are a number of them. both external and internal factors. One of them is the advent of COVID-19. I think it has really had a huge negative impact across all sectors of our economy, and mining has not been spared. Now, when you look at what is happening at the moment, I think the world is beginning to open up. And the fact that copper prices are going up now shows you and I that there is demand for copper out there. There is demand for our cobalt. There is demand for gold and all the other minerals that we are producing. So the impact of COVID-19 on the mining sector somehow is lessening. The other problem that we've had in the mining sector is the issue to do with policy. We have been very inconsistent, especially when it comes to the mining tax policy. And our Republican president, time and again, has re-emphasized on the need of coming up with a very predictable environment in the mining sector, a very predictable environment in terms of the tax policy and all the other policies that are needed. And once all of those things begin to fall in place, then you can confidently say we will be able to boost the productivity in the mining sector. I think it is something that is achievable over a period of time, provided that we put the necessary policies and we correct things that have to be corrected.
The minister also talked about job creation, that if we are to do our mining and increase the production capacity, then we are going to create employment. But again, there's another thing that he talked about. It says the budget is under stress, and currently a huge chunk is going to emoluments and servicing debt. Already, part of your budget is going towards emoluments, paying people's salaries, but you want to add by employing more people.
Well, I think it all depends on the time frame that you're looking at. Okay. Yes, you need to create employment. But are you saying we are going to create employment today or tomorrow? Certainly not. Okay? There are still a number of things that will have to be put in place for you to be able to create that employment. But the starting point should be to implement the right policies and the right measures in all sectors of our economy, in the mining sector, in the agricultural sector, in the tourism sector, especially the agricultural sector. The agricultural sector employs a significant proportion of our population. And when you look at the way agriculture has performed in the last 10 years, I think it leaves much to be desired. The performance has not been so good. If you just look at the contribution that agriculture makes to our GDP, it has dropped. In 2010, we were sitting at 9.4% contribution towards the GDP. Right now, it's just about 3%. So we need to be able to sort out that particular problem so that we can create more jobs in the agricultural sector, in the tourism sector, sort out whatever challenges that are being faced in the tourism sector, and then we'll be able to create the jobs in the long term. In the short term, we may not be able to do that due to the budget constraints that the president was talking about. Our coffers are empty, and most of our resources are going towards paying emoluments for public sector workers and paying debt. And I'll bring you back to the issue of the International Monetary Fund. This is where it's key. Once that particular deal comes through, and once we are able to change the terms and conditions of our debt, it will become easier, because now you'll be talking about reducing whatever you're spending on servicing of debt. Then you can channel those resources now to stimulate other key sectors of the economy, manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and others. And then it becomes easier for you to create those jobs. So it is important for us to look at the long-term horizon instead of looking at the short term.
You talked about your appeal to the new administration that they should not abandon some projects or some, policies that were put in place by the previous, administration. He talked about the issue of a French firm, Lazard, that was, contacted to help us, restructure our debt. Is this one of the measures or programs that the PF left, which you are also of the view that even the Hakainde Hichilema administration should continue with? Issue to do with the Lazard?
Well, the previous regime was very good when it came to putting in place economic recovery programs. And particularly when you look at the Zambia Plus economic recovery program, which was also called the Economic Stabilization and Growth Program. And when you look at the more recent Economic Recovery Program, 2020 to 2023, brilliant proposals. But certainly not the Lazard deal. For me, I don't think that is something that we might want to drag on for a period of time. I think when you just analyze the way things have turned out, it's very clear that that particular firm has added very little or no value. From the time that their services were engaged mid last year, by November, we were already defaulting on our debt. We first began by defaulting on our debt, and after that, I think whatever proposals were being made, the appeals that the Zambian government was made to be given relief on servicing the coupon payments on our Eurobonds, it was rejected. And then came February 2021, we saw another default. Certainly, that is not a good record. It clearly shows you that we are not making progress with that kind of a service. I think we need something different. We need something better. And if you listened to the way President Hichilema spoke, even before he became president, about this particular firm, it is very clear that we may not see this firm being engaged in the long run. I think their services at some point will have to end, and we are going to come up with other ways of resolving the debt problem.
The minister also talked about that among some of the new government reforms programs is to improve revenue collection by the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. We were told last year and part of this year that ZRA managed to beat their target. They collected more money.
Well, their targets...
What are reforms for? If ZRA is doing well, if ZRA is able to beat their target, why should we have reforms?
That's a very interesting question, Kelvin. Their targets were basically revised downwards, okay, to take into account some of the challenges that we are experiencing right now. COVID came in last year, okay, so you cannot set the same targets that you've been setting 2 to 3 years ago. Okay, so the kind of targets that they had took into account the economic environment, the macroeconomic environment that we are in, and they were able to surpass that particular target. But now that things look better, we might have to revise those targets upwards so that we should be able to generate more revenues to take care of our various needs and wants as a nation.
The minister also talked about, and he used the term useless, seminars and trips for government workers. Is the minister trying to communicate to us that seminars and workshops don't add any value?
Certainly, because when you look at some of these seminars and workshops, some of these meetings can be held within the work environment. When you go to some of these public institutions, government offices, they have adequate conference rooms and places where some of these meetings can be held and decisions are made. You don't necessarily need to have a workshop in Livingstone. You want to have a workshop in Siavonga. You are traveling. You are spending so much money on accommodation and other expenses. I think this is something that we need to deal with now, and I'm glad that our Minister of Finance has come out very strongly on that. We need to ensure that we cut down on that. I know that may not resonate very well with some civil servants, not everybody, but some civil servants, that may not resonate very well because some of these workshops are seen to be money spinners. At least when you attend a workshop, you might be able to raise a little something that you can use to attend to a few needs. But one of the issues that President Hakainde Hichilema emphasized even before he became president was the need to ensure that our public sector workers are remunerated properly. We need to ensure that they are given adequate salaries so that we can compensate for that, so that we can cut down on corruption in the public service. Okay, so in the short term, yeah, it may not resonate well with some individuals within the public sector, but in the long term, the kind of plans that the government has to ensure that public sector workers are paid well, I think it will be able to compensate for that.
With the cutting on some of the useless, workshops as well as seminars, They talked about, the minister as well as the president talked about enforced fiscal discipline. How do you see this working? What are some of the measures that government and the Minister of Finance will be able to put in place to make sure that we have or they enforce, fiscal discipline?
Well, first things first, we need to cut our coat according to the cloth that we have. We need to ensure that we spend within our means. If you look at the way things have been in the past regime, even at a time when COVID-19 had come in, when our domestic revenues had dwindled, our spending was still on an expansionary path. We were still doing roads, and we were still doing bridges, and we were still doing big things. We were not generating revenues at that point. And that is the reason why our debt continued increasing. Okay, so that the starting point is to ensure that you realign your expenditures. Okay, you cut down on your expenditure. And then the next thing is to ensure that you improve on domestic resource mobilization. Okay, that is part of the fiscal discipline, the way the government is going to be spending those resources. Next, the minister talked about not protecting, government workers that find themselves in situations where there is, issues of corruption and mismanagement. That is the way to go. We have talked time and again about the reports of the Auditor General. You have misallocation being reported, you have misappropriation, you have unretired interest and vast expenditure and delivered materials being reported year in, year out. But in terms of action, there is no action that is being taken. And I mean, if you don't take action, those things will continue going on and on. The reports of the Financial Intelligence Center, the anti-money laundering reports, very little or no action has been taken on that. Okay, so when you talk about fiscal discipline, you need to ensure that wherever there is a report of corruption, whenever there is a report of misappropriation of funds, you need to take the necessary action so that you can deter would-be offenders. So fiscal discipline is very important.
He also talked about engaging creditors transparently. What does this mean? Because we heard the previous government was having negotiations with those people that have lended us money, and now even this administration is talking about engaging them. Are they trying to propose or to push the repayment forward, even with the local suppliers? If their monies were supposed to be paid now, are they saying they are going to re-engage them and tell them, so we were hoping that we'll start paying you this month, but because the way things are, maybe we'll pay you in the next 3 months to come or so? And don't you think this will dampen their morale? And also the issue of the private sector won't thrive because they won't be paid.
Well, I think the first and most important thing is confidence. Once you build confidence with your creditors, both domestic and international creditors, then things become a whole lot easier. We saw that in the last 1 to 2 weeks, the kwacha has been appreciating very sharply, and that has mainly to do with confidence. Okay, just like at a personal level. Okay, when you are being owed money by somebody who is perceived to be financially indisciplined, someone who is not committed to ensuring that they manage their resources properly, if they make promises to say, I am going to pay you your money tomorrow, you don't really trust them. You will not really trust them. But once you are dealing with a person that is credible, a person that you are confident in, even if they tell you, look, I'm not able to pay you all the monies that I owe you now, I'm going to pay you in the next 1 or 2 weeks, they will be able to take your word because they believe in you, because they have confidence in you, and they believe in what you are doing, especially when you're able to demonstrate that the reason why you are trying to postpone that particular debt is so that you can put yourself in a position where you are able to generate enough resources to be able to pay off that debt. And that is exactly what President Hakainde is talking about. He's talking about putting ourselves in a position where we'll be able to generate enough resources from the mining sector, boost your production, from the tourism sector, from the agricultural sector. So if your lenders of finances look at that, they have the confidence to say, yes, I think we have somebody that we can trust, and we'll be able to push our repayments forward. Okay, and it also comes at a benefit. One thing that you need to understand is when you restructure your debt or when you postpone your debt, it comes at a cost to you as the borrower. But then the lender will also benefit from that. So in as much as you are telling them we are not able to pay you this 750 million US dollars now, but we'll be able to pay it to you in the next 5 years, there is also a benefit for them, okay, because they know that once you do that, interest will accrue. Okay, so that is the thing.
0764250055. We are looking at the new dawn, economic outlook under BALLY, and we are discussing the things that many things that the president mentioned when he was swearing in Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane, and also the things that have to be done or to be put in place at the Ministry of Finance and at the national level by the minister in charge of finance. So if you have any contribution or any question, the phone line is open, 0764250055. The number again, 0764250055. My guest is a business and financial analyst, Blessings Kafwanka. As we are still, waiting for people to call in and add their voices. Government, he talks about, before I get to that, to ask you my question, let's speak our first, okay, 0764250055. He talked about government aims at revamping production in multi-facility economic zones, MFAs. We were told by the previous government that our MFAs were doing very fine and that there is activity there. But now the new minister is talking about revamping production. Do you think Zambia, with the current status or economic status where we are in, where our coffers are empty, the minister talking about revamping, adding value to the things that we are producing in this country, is he looking at the long term also, that when we are given money by IMF, then we can channel some of the resources? Or what is it that, where are we going to get the money to revamp the emphasis that we have?
When you talk about revamping the MFAs, the multi-facility economic zones, numbers don't lie. You might have a regime that is telling you that our manufacturing sector is doing very well. But when you look at the numbers, in terms of the growth in the manufacturing sector, we've just grown from 7% to 8%, 1% growth from 2010 up to now. 10 years, 1% growth. That should tell you a story that we are not really doing very well in the manufacturing sector. One thing that you need to realize is that the manufacturing sector provides very strong backward and forward linkages to other sectors of the economy. When you have a vibrant manufacturing sector, it creates demand for raw materials which come from your agricultural sector. It creates demand for your soybeans, which should be converted into cooking oil. It creates demand for the maize that can be converted into feed. Maize that can be converted into cornflakes, tomatoes that can be converted into tomato paste and tomato sauce. So when you have that vibrant manufacturing sector, it creates that backward linkage. It also creates forward linkages. The wholesale sector and the retail sector will be able to benefit from our robust manufacturing sector. The financial sector also benefits from that. So you need to ensure that you have a very vibrant manufacturing sector. But the biggest question that you need to ask yourself is, where is the problem? Why haven't we been growing as desired? Quite a number of problems there. Number one, the manufacturing sector in Zambia operates within a very difficult macroeconomic environment. A very difficult macro environment where interest rates are on a very high side, above 30%. A macroeconomic environment where inflation is on a very high side, 24.6%. An environment where the forex rate, your foreign exchange, is volatile. It's always swinging back and forth. It becomes very difficult to plan. So the first and most important thing that you need to do to boost your manufacturing sector is to ensure that you create a favorable and predictable macroeconomic environment. And once you do that, then the manufacturing sector will be able to thrive, and it will create those forward and backward linkages that will benefit the agricultural sector, that will benefit the tourism sector as well. So the growth in that particular sector hasn't been that much, just 1% growth. The only sector that has grown exponentially in the last sector is the wholesale sector and the retail sector. Those are the sectors that have recorded the highest amount of growth. And you and I know very well that our wholesale sector and our retail sector mainly rides on imported products from across our borders. So we have seen all of these nice shopping malls that have come up on almost every main road. Everywhere we've seen these shopping malls with retail outlets where they are basically dealing in items that are imported from across our borders. So it is very important, and I think it is very good that our Minister of Finance was able to raise that fact, to say we need to ensure that we boost our manufacturing sector with special focus to the to the M phase.
Let's pick some calls. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello? Good evening.
Hello, good evening. This is Charles Charlie.
Mr. Charlie, you are calling from where?
From Chingola.
Yes, Mr. Charlie. Let's see your contribution.
Yes, I just want to congratulate the President for his pick of the Minister of Finance. I think he has done a great job. And I also want to add on Zambian people, please, let's give the President time to choose the ministers lightly. Let's not rush the President. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. That is Charlie from Chingola. 0764250055 is the number that you are calling in order for you to be part of the special interview. We are discussing, the economic outlook under BALLY, and my, guest is a business and financial analyst, Blessings Kafwanka. Hello?
Hello?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, thanks. How are you?
Very fine. Your name, sir, and where you are calling us from?
I'm calling you from 6 Miles. Benson.
Mr. Lungu.
Benson.
Mr. Lungu Benson, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just happy with the conversation. But I'm also happy with the fact that he is giving the Minister of Finance. Hello?
Yes, Mr. Lungu, we are with you.
Yes, so for me, I see things changing if they'll stick to the targets that they have given to the Minister of Finance.
That is Benson Lungu from within Lusaka, 6 Miles. 0764250055. You can come through on that number and add your voice. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Can kindly reduce the volume on your TV set?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Your name and where are you calling us from?
Okay. I can hear you now.
Your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm calling you from Kasama. I'm not here.
Your name?
I'm calling you from
0764250055 is the number. We are discussing economic outlook under BALLY. It is a new dawn, and we are chatting with Blessings Kafwanka, who is a business and financial analyst, as we looking at what the president, the new Minister of Finance, talked about in the afternoon of today. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Your name, sir, and where are you calling us from?
My name is Wadia, calling from Kitwe.
Mr. Wadia from Kitwe, please, let's hear your contribution.
Hello?
Go ahead and make your contribution.
Yeah, my contribution is I would like to congratulate the new finance minister
Okay.
for being appointed. And again, one thing that I would like to know is, we have seen his CV, is very good, but the question that I have is, what has he done in all this position he has saved? Because this time we want somebody to be on the position, to judge them according to what they have done in those positions that they have been saved. They have to have an example. So during his tenure when he was at finance minister during the Pierre Banda's regime, what did he do? And bring all those CVs that he has, what did he do or what change did he do when he was given those positions? So that's the thing that we should ask ourselves, and we should judge him according to what he has done in the past.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bwali.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bwali. I think Blessings, you'll be able to help us, answer that one. If at all the things that Dr. Musokotwane did when he was Minister of Finance under Rupia Bozanbanda, maybe you can give examples where the kwacha to it, how the difference, the way the difference was. Hello, good evening.
Oh, good evening.
Your name, sir, and where are you calling us from?
This is what you are calling from Solwezi.
Mr. Chava from Solwezi.
Yes, sir.
Let's hear your contribution, sir.
Yeah, I think looking at the tone that the new administration has taken, I think this is the good way to go. Because from the appointment and even the pronouncement that we've been getting from the president, I think it gives confidence even to these accreditors, where we get the money from. I think this is the best way to go. Now, the problem there with the previous administration, I think there was a bit of arrogance, even when people were trying to advise them. The courts are huge to the advice. I think they are pointing the way they wanted them to do it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chava. Let me pick two last calls, and then Mr. Kafwanka responds to some of the questions that you've raised, you, our callers. 0764-250055, two last calls before I re-engage Mr. Kafwanka to respond to some of the questions. Hello, good evening. Hello? Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. How are you?
Very fine, sir. Your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm calling you from Katama, America.
Yes. Have you reduced the volume now?
Yes.
Let's hear your contribution, sir.
Yeah, my contribution is, I really first of all congratulate Dr. Musokotwane for the appointment as the new minister. And again, I'm asking the general public to give BALLY some time. It's just 2-3 days in the office. I think there's no need to rush, because this country was in a mess. So we really need to give him time to appoint people of traceable background. I know we need a new crop on the market, but they are like the Ministry of Finance. It's very important that we need someone who has a taste over it and who can do and help us to revamp the economy. Otherwise, we are languishing in poverty. If we try, there's no need for experiments. Try and try is not necessary at this point in time. So we give him time, especially the ministry where he has appointed. He has done right to give somebody who has an experience. And other ministries, like also the commerce ministry, needs to put on somebody who has an experience so that we can work together as a country. We support BALLY. The Makachinga, we forget them. Those are just bootlickers and puppets. How could you pronounce that parachute on pay? Who is the, and it's supposed to be taken to court for that insubordinate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, speak our last call. This evening, 0764-250055 is the number. The number again is showing on your TV sets, and I can accommodate the last caller this evening. We seem to have our last caller. Hello, good evening. Hello?
Yeah. mwasebenza bwanji?
Tasebenza bwino ba Kamayoyo kuli bwanji kwa Kanyama na ku John Lenge.
No, kwa Kanyama bakulumpe kuli bwino na ku John Lenge mulungu atisunga.
Zikomo kwambiri tyentuvereza mene mukamba.
No, amika mulungu na kupokerera appointment yaba Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwana as finance minister. Choipa kuli ba Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwani kulibe. Tembe ba Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwani tembe ba napa. Tembe yo appointment tembe kulibe. Na chance yo pepa chiri chonse kuli ba IMF kapena ba World Bank singa kale nayo. Bati na Kamayoyo Stumbeko nili na confidence yakuti IMF na World Bank ili free kutipata chiri chonse cha managing pempe chufwa aba baka bwarada niamika chape media kuti yenekera kuti pitiriza kutipata information kulingana na mameneji kunira noti vija pamene pese kutita kuti media vachitobauza perekani hivi kumasitile nyaa chikomo mtevenze bwino wakurumpe.
Twasante bakulumpe.
Twasante mwani.
Stumbeko Musokotwane Kamayoyo. Bige, you've heard the views from the people. Others have agreed with you to say Zambians should give time to the new administration, and that is something that you talked about, that we need to have patience. We need to give them time in order for them to start delivering. But someone is saying, what is it that Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane did, whether at the university as a lecturer, whether at the Ministry of Finance as an advisor, secretary to the cabinet, secretary to the treasury, also when he served under Rupia Bwezanbanda as Minister of Finance? What is it that he did?
The macroeconomic outlook at the time that Dr. Musokotwane was leaving office was better. By the time he was leaving the office of Minister of Finance, things were a lot better. You know, when you look at inflation, we were within a single-digit rate of inflation. Right now, inflation keeps running away. It keeps getting further and further away from the targeted range of 6 to 8%. Now we're at 24.6%. Okay, so we had a single-digit rate of inflation during that time. Interest rates were better. We had a stable rate. The kwacha was performing far much better at the time. Even our levels of debt, our debt levels were within sustainable levels. We did not have this situation where you are spending 40% of your domestic revenues on servicing debt. So the fiscal space at that time was better. We had more resources that were being allocated to other key sectors of the economy, education, health, and others. Okay, so the macroeconomic outlook at that time was a lot better than it was now. Even the agricultural sector, I did highlight earlier on that the agricultural sector was growing at 9.4% in 2010 before the previous regime took over. So certainly the macroeconomic environment at that time was a lot better than it is right now. So it is that kind of stability that we need. We need to get back to that single-digit rate of inflation. And even the gross international reserves were over 3 months import cover, and that is where we need to get to. So I think in terms of the way he performed, well, we cannot say, we cannot attribute all that praise to him, but it was the entire team at the time, the MMD government under the leadership of Rupia Banda. I think there were a number of other people that did contribute to that, but at the time, I think the fundamentals were a lot better than they are right now.
BK, we have to go, but before we go, there's something also that the minister talked about, that government will ride on the heightened investor trust and confidence that is being shown. Where is this trust and the confidence coming from? Because people said Hakainde Hichilema has never served in any government, or he hasn't held any elective position. The doctor is talking about the confidence and the trust that has been shown. Why are they trusting a man that has never been tested with the issue of leadership?
I think President Hakainde Hichilema is perceived to be market-friendly and investor-friendly. We saw a statement that came from JP Morgan, one of the biggest investment banks around the world, one of the key players in the on the international financial markets, and they did make that statement. They did indicate that President Hakainde is a more market and friendly investor leader, and they did even advise the international markets to consider buying Zambia's bonds. So that alone creates that confidence. And we saw immediately after that statement was issued, we saw the way our currency began to appreciate very sharply. Okay, so yes, he has never held any key government positions in the past, but because of the kind of, the kind of perception that the international community has about him, I think we have already seen that confidence is already building. We just heard in the news about 2 days ago that the UK government is already pledging about £9 million. You know, they would like to assist in the education sector, in the health sector and other sectors. Okay, so there is this confidence that is already, coming through. And the Minister of Finance is right to say that we are going to ride on this particular confidence to ensure that we are able to bring the fundamentals together.
Blessings, Kafwanka. Thank you so much for making an appearance on the special interview, and hope to see you soon as you continue to help us analyze and discuss issues to do with the economy and financial matters.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. There you have it. This has been a special interview on your channel of choice, Muvi Television, and we've been looking at the economic outlook under BALLY. It is still the new dawn. What is at stake? Today, one minister has been appointed in the Hakainde Hichilema administration, that is the Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwane, who has just gone back to the Ministry of Finance, where he served from 2008 to 2011 under the leadership of President Rupia Bwezani-Banda of the MMD. What is it that we are going to see with the new minister? He has talked about a number of issues to do with the mining sector, the agricultural sector, no more useless seminars and workshops, and they talked about sealing the leakages and those that have been involved in corrupt activities at the Ministry of Finance. He said they are on their own and they're not going to be shielded or protected. My name is Kelvin Tabola, Chief Focal, and I've been discussing these matters with a financial as well as business analyst, Blessings Kafwanka. On behalf of Mavuto Piri, who is the producer and the director of the show, as well as Obvious Kapunda on the cameras. Good evening.